In my previous video, I talked about the BeamMP hacking incident that occurred on March 28th of this year. It was carried out by a Russian hacker known as Wodyankov. In this video, I want to focus more on the hacker himself, rather than the incident. But first, I want to address a very dangerous myth: claims that people's computers were affected after the attack. According to BeamMP staff, they found no evidence of any malware in the launcher. We found no evidence to support that the launcher had been infected. How come so many complained about their PCs running poorly? Many people commented saying their laptops didn't want to launch, etc. We've heard complaints from random individuals, but we have no evidence to suggest that any new versions of the launcher had been served from our infrastructure to the public. The software signature in the latest version matches the last that we had uploaded, and there's no history of it changing or being switched back. I also spoke to several BeamMP players, and none were able to provide proof that their issues were actually related to the hack. However, what the hacker did is still very concerning nonetheless. On March 29th, a day after the hacking incident, he uploaded the entire BeamMP source code to his main GitHub page. Unfortunately for him, the page was quickly taken down, and at the moment, only his backup account remains active. The hacker also managed to obtain some user data, including email addresses and passwords. However, at the moment, it's very unlikely that he will be able to decrypt them, at least based on what I've been told by my sources. The passwords he obtained are hashed using secure hash algorithm. While it's not impossible to crack, decrypting them would require significant brute force, which is extremely resource intensive. Given that, it's very unlikely the hacker has the capability to do that. I tried reaching out to the hacker through a few people, but at first I had no success. That said, I did eventually confront him, which I'll talk about later. Fortunately for us, someone on Reddit managed to contact him first and posted the full conversation, which I'll show now. First off, how did you pull this off? Like, how did it happen?
Vulnerability in BeamMP systems.
Were viruses actually put in computers? Or was it just a scare tactic?
I've had access to the BeamMP infrastructure since March 8th. I have access to some computers, and I could have access to all computers, but I don't need it.
So, were the data leaks only passwords, or was it personal information?
Passwords, hashes, emails, IP addresses, PC specifications. Since March 24th, I have received full access to BeamMP hosting, which hosts all the official servers, wiki, forum, website.
Do you still have access to the bot for Discord?
Not now. All bots have been removed from the Discord server. It's possible that the vulnerability won't be fixed, and after the launch, I'll be able to gain access again.
Why did you do this? Was there a point? Did the BeamMP people make you mad in any way?
The attitude of the staff towards some of my acquaintances was very bad. The point was, I gained target access to a PC monitor that has access to other systems.
So you have access to PCs of the BeamMP people?
I don't rule it out.
The conversation itself doesn't tell us much, since the hacker could be lying about almost everything. Because of that, talking to him is mostly pointless, unless you're trying to understand his motives. However, the conversation does give us some insight into the attacker's mindset. He tends to exaggerate and sensationalize everything, which makes his claims, such as having access to users' computers, very unlikely, especially given his apparent lack of advanced hacking skills. What we can take from it, though, is his motivation, which actually aligns with a statement apparently made by BeamMP staff members. Project management rejected their staff application, which threw the user in rage mode. Even still, it took them a few months to find a way in. I also tried verifying this statement with BeamMP staff member, and that's what they said. Can't say with 100% certainty that that's what threw them into a rage, but it is a factual statement that they'd been repeatedly applying for staff, and I told them I couldn't move forward with their application, because their name was linked to attacks that were actively taking place among the community. It's also worth noting how he refers to his, quote, acquaintances, instead of speaking about himself directly. This kind of behavior is often used to distance oneself from responsibility, by shifting actions onto others, even when those actions are clearly their own. It's a common psychological pattern meant to make the person seem less directly involved, while still taking credit indirectly. It was all the time the same person, correct? Everything pointed toward that same person, from what we could find. Considering he had about 4,000 BeamMP accounts that were being used for DDoSing servers, communities, officials, etc., I wouldn't rule out that he didn't have friends also involved, but we have every reason to believe he's the main actor. As it turns out, the hacker had been attempting to hack BeamMP much earlier, but only succeeded in March of this year. It actually shows how dedicated he was. The hacker himself is a 17-year-old from Russia, possibly from Yekaterinburg, based on information found on one of his GitHub profiles, although I'm not entirely certain about that. However, I do believe we now have some legitimate personal information about him. I was contacted by someone who claimed to know Wodyankao pretty well. I decided to conduct an interview with them, and what they shared seemed credible, so I'm fairly confident that the information is legitimate. Wodyankao's alleged real name is Vadim Malkov Igorovich, born on November 8, 2008. He apparently creates his own RP servers in beamNG and has a history of causing trouble for others. The source also runs their own RP project, and they had some indirect experience with him. When they launched their server, he allegedly attempted to disrupt it in multiple ways, including possible DDoS attacks on the server, website, and other infrastructure. The source also claims that he is mainly driven by a need for, quote, self-expression rather than any clear goal. While he sometimes tries to gain something from his actions, in most cases the only outcome is simply causing trouble. I was also told that there's a high chance he won't actually do anything with the data he obtained, at least according to the source's statement. When I asked them, how do they know his real name? That's what they told me. He's actually well known in the Russian RP server community. But I personally learned this from a friend who'd repeatedly checked his number and so on. They also told me this. He created a DDoS attack program that easily creates BeamMP accounts, after which these accounts attempt to log into the server almost simultaneously, causing the servers to fail and crash. 2 days later, on March 31st, Wodyankao, who I'll refer to as Vadim from now on, joined my server using a second account. I had already taken precautions to make sure he wouldn't be able to do anything stupid. I tried talking to him and having a normal conversation, but it didn't really go as planned. So instead, I showed him the information I had about him, and his only response was a nerd emoji. Actually, using nerd emoji in big 2026 is crazy to me. But okay, maybe time has stopped in Russia, so I won't be judging that. As soon as I banned him from my server, someone using a Discord plugin, the same one Vadim uses, sent a screenshot from inside my server, asking what was going on. After a short confrontation, we were almost certain it was one of Vadim's alt accounts. There's a chance he had been quietly infiltrating my server the whole time, but I'm still not entirely certain. What the alleged alt account sent in my DMs, even before Vadim joined my server, is actually kinda interesting. They removed it as soon as I banned them, but I managed to archive the message. From what I was able to understand using Google Translate, it's basically Vadim proving to his group that he managed to leak BeamMP's source code. Honestly, being proud of something like that on the internet is pretty sad. But here we are, able to help find any of Vadim's profiles online. We ended up finding his Steam account, and unsurprisingly, it turns out he's also a CSGO player, basically completing the stereotypical Russian hacker image. He also has a YouTube channel with just one video uploaded in 2024. At one point, you can briefly see what might be his face, but since I'm not confident about it, I won't be making it public here. I'm sure there are still some smaller leads I didn't include, and this could probably be turned into a much longer video if I really wanted to, but I'm going to leave it here. I mainly wanted to answer 2 key questions: who did it, and why. I've also forwarded some of the information I found to the BeamMP staff, just in case it helps. That being said, I do think BeamMP shares some responsibility for what happened. They were clearly a vulnerable target, and they're honestly lucky that the person behind this was a 17-year-old loser with some delusional need for revenge, and not a highly skilled and experienced attacker who could have done much more harm. Thanks for sticking with me till the end. I recommend checking my other videos on other morons from the beamNG community. Also join my Discord if you want latest updates on upcoming videos or dramas in general. See ya.